Well, we're going to make a start. This is a really amazing connection of people that have all joined us today. Before I start, I just want to acknowledge that we are gathered on the lands of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people all across the country now known as Australia. I pay respects to the elders, past and present, of all of the communities that you're calling in from today. And I pay particular respect to the Yagara and the Turrbal people, where Queensland Advocacy for Inclusion is based here in Magandran in southeast Queensland. I also pay my respect to all the First Nations people who've joined us today and all of the First Nations people with disability across this big place that have been really providing leadership about how we do this work for a very, very, very long time. I would also just like to acknowledge that the land was never ceded and that it always was and it always will be Aboriginal land. So, with that in mind, we're going to start a session today. And just to remind everyone, when you first speak for the guest speakers, to please just give a little visualization of yourself. So, I'm of the Middle Ages. I have a short, dark haircut. I'm wearing glasses that are from the chemist because I'm just losing my eyesight. I've got a little headset on and I'm in the office with a blurry background and probably not a very flattering shirt that I should have worn on a Zoom. But anyway, we'll make it through the talk. As I said, my name's Lenine Burke. I work as a systems advocate in campaigning with Queensland Advocacy for Inclusion, and I'm very excited to be the facilitator for today. I also identify as a person with a disability, and I also have 2 children with disabilities, and we also are an LGBT family. So we have some absolutely incredible speakers joining us today, and they all just met about 20 minutes ago, although it turned out Matilda and Kristie had been at a barbecue on the weekend together. So in classic Queensland friendliness, that's what we're doing here. I'm just going to try to get rid of a few little bits and pieces while I keep admitting people into the meetings, which is great. If anybody has any problems, you can write in the chat at any point in time, and we have 2 colleagues, Sarah and Shannon, who are going to follow up with you on that. I'm just going to go into a little bit about introducing our Auslan interpreters, Michelle Ashley, and following her will be Susan Emerson. We also have a link in the chat, which if you require live captions, you can see there it's bradleyreporting.1. You can click on that and it will open up a screen for you where we have the amazing Donna doing all of our live captioning for us. And we encourage people, if you have 2 screens or you might prefer to have the live captioning open and this screen reduced, whatever works for you. We are also recording today, so if you speak and you ask a question, particularly later on when we've got question time and you don't want to be recorded, please just make that announcement before you speak and we'll delete that part from the recording. I really needed an assistant when 100 and something plus people RSVP'd to get you all into the meeting, but anyway, we're going to do it. So I'm going to get us started with Matilda Alexander, who is the CEO of Queensland Advocacy for Inclusion. She is going to just give us a bit of scene setting about how we ended up here today at this amazing gathering of people focused on solutions, not suspensions, and the particular Right to Learn campaign. If you have a question that you want to put to Matilda for the moment, put it in the chat, and at the end we will try to come back around to those. If there's something in there that is going wrong technically, also please put it in there, and my 2 incredible chat room attendees will make sure that everything works there well. I'm just going to now try to put a little pin on Matilda.
While you're doing that, I'll
Go for it, Matilda. Thank
introduce
you.
myself. So I am also of the Middle Ages. I love that word, introduce. That's a good, I'm going to do that from now on. I've got blonde hair, blue eyes, and I have a little headset on and a flowery dress with a background of some books and a door. I am here to talk about the Right to Learn campaign. So QAI, together with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Legal Service and Youth Advocacy Centre, and Peak Care started this campaign about 4 years ago. We were noticing anecdotally that a disproportionate number of suspensions were going to kids with disability. We did a Freedom of Information application, which which confirmed our suspicions. 49% of suspensions were going to kids with disability, and also they were much more likely to get repeat suspensions than other kids. So it was showing that suspensions weren't working for kids with disability. Since that time, the Disability Royal Commission also looked at this issue and came up with the recommendation that suspensions be a last resort for kids with disability. Also, since that time, the rates of kids with disability being suspended have increased to 64% from data just a couple of months ago in Queensland. So we still have a really disproportionate rate of suspension for kids with disability. It's also really high for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids and kids in out-of-home care. Now, we know that suspension can realistically be a last resort for kids with disability. We know what works. We hear all the time from teachers, from parents, from students about alternatives that are put in place. So much care and hard work and compassion that goes towards keeping our kids in school. So we wanted to really highlight that suspension does not have to be and should not be the first, second, third, fourth, fifth solution, that suspension should be the last resort. We want to, and we're building partnerships between schools, between families, between principals, unions, community and government to show that this does not have to be the case, that we can keep our kids in school, that we can keep our kids in school not just sitting in their classrooms, but we can keep them there safely and we can keep them there successfully so that we can all benefit from a community where all of our kids are given an equal opportunity to complete their schooling and graduate and to be successful. The children are really our future, and the opportunity that we're giving them today is what's going to create a society for us all in the future. So we think this campaign is very important, and thank you all for coming along. Jump on the A Right to Learn website and follow us for further campaign updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Matilda. Perfectly said, and a great way to start us off, particularly understanding the partnerships and the human rights issues that we're talking about today. We are now going to just do a quick introduction of the other people that we have joining us. So we have Skye Kakoschke-Moore, CEO of Children, Young People with Disabilities Australia. Skye, do you want to just put a little wave up there? Either you can go emoji or you've got a hand. You're welcome to use your hand if you want to as well. We've also got Boyd McLean, our principal from Cherbourg State School in regional Queensland, not that far away, but still not up the road. We've got Kristie de Brenni, the principal of Queensland Pathway State College. She's going to talk about her school, but it has 9 campuses across the state. So that's really exciting. We also then have a parent, Ashley, who's joining us from Far North Queensland. Let me see, did we get Ashley back on the screen, Sarah? Has she come back yet?
Yes, and she has told me that she can hear us.
Great. Okay. Awesome. She's in Cairns, so being the furthest away, her and Boyd can fight it out for internet access. And then we have also Ainsley, who's joining us as the other parent advocate from Southeast Queensland, and I believe she also has her son Will with her today as well. Hi, Will. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Lenine. Really nice to have you with us. So I'm going to throw firstly to Skye. As the CEO of Children and Young People with Disabilities Australia, you run a national peak body. So it's really great to have you with us today. Thank you so much. And I guess some of the stuff we were super interested in is that you have released some recent reports, and we will make sure we share them with people as well, where you scoped 400 young people across the country to talk about their experiences of schooling and inclusion. Can you give us a bit of an update about this recent report by CIDA and some of your key takeaways that you would really want us to know about?
Skye speaking. Thanks, Lenine. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight and for providing this opportunity for us to all learn and listen to one another. My name's Skye. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm joining you today from Kaurna country in South Australia. A visual description of myself is I am a pale-skinned, also middle-aged woman with shoulder-length blonde hair, and I'm wearing black framed glasses and I have white earphones on. So Lenine mentioned some reports SADA released recently. These were reports based on surveys that we ran with young people and with parents and caregivers about experiences in school. We called the report Disillusion and Delay, and it detailed findings of the surveys that we ran and the more than 400 people who responded. The survey results spoke of ongoing systemic issues. These included widespread bullying and exclusion, with 72% of young people reported being excluded from school activities. 73% reported being bullied in the last 12 months. And when it comes to suspensions, 21% of parents who responded to the survey said their child had been suspended from school, and 27% had faced disciplinary absences involving restricted school hours. Some of the other key takeaways or systemic issues that the surveys highlighted for us were what was described by students and parents as ineffective school support planning, and also a real recognition that teachers lack the support they so desperately need to create those really inclusive environments that they want to. And this leads then to non-inclusive school cultures where students with disability experience very low expectations. And Skye speaking. Lenine, your mic is off.
Thanks, Skye. It's Lenine. I just had to sort of take a bit of a deep breath then, because starting, with that national picture, we're hearing some terrible stories. And at the same time, families and educators and teachers are doing amazing work as well in partnership in many other places. So if there were 3 solutions, or what you think, if you were principal of every Australian school, what are the 3 solutions that you see that schools could implement right now that would address some of the issues that came out of the consultation you conducted?
Skye speaking. Oh gosh, it's such a good question. And I am in some ways I feel not worthy of being in the same room as principals because I have so much respect for the hard work that you do every single day to support incredibly diverse classrooms. So the information I'm about to provide is recommendations that SADA has made in our reports on our surveys. These recommendations were informed by the students and the parents and the caregivers who engaged with us. So firstly, as a principal, we'd like to see that all students are afforded the status of being a learner and not just a passive recipient of education. Students and families often tell us that low expectations from adults in their lives linked to that child or young person's disability limit their opportunities at school and beyond. And to address this, we've been told that schools can and should invest in mandatory ongoing professional development for teachers and school staff on inclusive education practices, understanding diverse disabilities, and implementing meaningful accommodations. Encouraging and facilitating regular school-wide activities that promote disability awareness and celebrate diversity to foster genuine inclusion and reduce stigma will also help to improve those attitudes towards disability. Our second idea is about individual education plans, or IEPs, as these can be incredibly powerful tools to support inclusion and the meaningful participation of students with disability. SADA's surveys revealed that 72% of respondents had an individual education plan in place. However, most said that their plan lacked personalisation and effective implementation. So there's a huge opportunity here for schools to work more closely with students to ensure the individual education plans, development processes are genuinely collaborative and consistently involve students and their families in that really meaningful decision making so that they reflect student voices and their lived experiences. And thirdly, we recommend that schools can and should prioritise student mental health and wellbeing. Integrating comprehensive mental health supports within school settings, including professional counselling and clear referral pathways, will proactively address mental health needs related to the bullying, exclusion, and academic pressures that so many students face. In addition, establishing peer support programs and mentorship initiatives will assist students with disability in developing social connections and resilience. These steps relating to wellbeing will benefit not just students with disability, but the wider student population as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Skye. I was taking lots of notes then, but I'm really excited because we also, I'm just admitting more people. We also are recording this because we often get lots of questions, as Matilda raised, like, what are the solutions? I also just wanted to let you know that Susan is our Auslan interpreter as well. So if people are looking for Auslan, there's 2 interpreters, Auslan interpreter Michelle and Auslan interpreter Susan. The other thing is we've just had a question from Tiffany saying Skye's speaking about him based in SA, but does Queensland have an equivalent of cider? Skye, could you answer that for us?
Skye speaking. Because CIDA is a national organisation, we strive to engage with and represent the experiences of children and young people with disability across the country. So I'm based in Adelaide. I have team members with in Victoria, in Tasmania, in Western Australia. Our board is from all across the country as well. So while we don't have, I suppose, an equivalent organisation in Queensland, the company that we're in tonight with Queensland Advocacy for Inclusion is certainly excellent company to be in.
Thanks, Skye. It's Lenine. And Matilda, just before we finish up with Skye, do you want to just briefly explain, seeing Tiffany's raised this great question about Queensland Advocacy for Inclusion and our young people's program?
So QAI is funded by the Queensland Government to provide disability advocacy for young people, including funded to provide disability advocacy in schools for kids who are facing who are having trouble getting their needs met in schools. So do contact QAI if you need some help for your loved one.
And Sarah, can you pop the link to the QAI website and the YPP page into the chat? Thank you so much. Awesome question, Tiffany. My last question for you, Skye, is what are some of the ways that you're seeing young people advocate for their rights in education?
Skye speaking. Another fantastic question. And when we think about advocacy, understanding your rights as a student is one of the first steps in being able to be an advocate or to support the young person in your life with their advocacy. So the Disability Discrimination Act and the Disability Standards for Education are essential tools because they provide the basis through which students and families can advocate for reasonable adjustment and inclusion at school. The other way we see advocacy taking place is through promoting awareness and understanding of life as a student with disability, and also promoting awareness about resources. So at CIDA, we've been fortunate enough to partner with students and families for many years to co-design information and resources with and for our community. This includes information about the disability standards for education and also some resources we've recently released as part of our Take Charge of Change project, which is all about supporting young people and families through those big life transitions. I'm just going to take a moment to pop links to both of those resource hubs in the chat. But yeah, I think I'm happy to hand it back to you now.
Beautiful. It's Lenine. Thank you so much, Skye. We will also have one of our parent advocates, Ainsley, also works for a Queensland-based organisation called Community Resource Unit. So Ainsley, could you just give a brief spiel, and we've also got links on our website just for others about what is CREW.
Thank you. Yes, Ainsley here. I'm joining you from Quandamooka country. I'm also a middle-aged woman, white skin and tortoiseshell glasses and dark hair pulled back and a black dress on. My son Will was with me momentarily, but he's popped out. It is the first week of his school holidays, so he may rejoin in a moment. But yes, Community Resource Unit has been around in Queensland for over 35 years. We're based in Brisbane, but we travel statewide. We are a not-for-profit organisation, and we're very much around helping people with disability, their family members and supporters and workers, so that people with disability and their families primarily can lead their own change. So we're very much around providing information, resources, workshops. We do consultations, and I work within the project within Crew that works with the young people, primarily in the school years, and it's the Families for Inclusive Education project. It is another project that is funded by the Queensland State Government. The Department of Education is who we work with. And we're very much around helping families navigate inclusive schooling for their child with disability and helping them to learn the advocacy skills and the ways and means to collaborate well with their schools for their child's inclusion. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ainsley. It's Lanine again. We've just shared some resources on there, and there's also some good comments about the DDA and the education standards being quite weak. There has been some recent submission work done in regards to that, but we'll come back to that at the end. Hopefully we can engage some people in that idea. Skye, thank you for an amazing setup. Like in regards to Matilda, it's great to have that national perspective, but to see so many of the examples you gave us relevant for across this big place in Queensland. There's going to be some things that you've raised there that I know our principals are going to dive into. So I'm going to head to Boyd McLean, the principal at Cherbourg State School. Boyd, I know we're going to dive right into it, but just for anyone who doesn't know, give us your elevator pitch on Cherbourg State School.
Oh, simply the greatest school in Queensland. So I don't need too much more. Look, Cherbourg is a discrete community, about, I guess, 3 hours from Brisbane. We have 200 students who are, like any other student in Queensland, they want to be learners, they want to do well, they want to celebrate their successes. We reside on Waka Waka country. We speak Waka Waka language, or our students learn Waka Waka. We are predominantly a school that is we are 100% Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students, First Nation students. So
Okay.
it honestly is a great school. And it is a school that is growing academically and growing enrolments. It's exciting.
I love that. Having been out there before, I can vouch for the vibe that is emanating when you drive past the school. You can feel it even outside. So, Boyd, as the principal, and I think you said to me before, you've been here about 3.5 years now, and I got to see you speak at our last online town hall and was blown away by some of the numbers that have changed in terms of your suspension rates and some of the big decisions you've made. We can get into that if we get time, but what I really want to know is, what are the 3 things that you think that you've seen from leadership in your school that have had the biggest impact on student engagement?
Look, I guess first, it's hard to narrow it down to 3, so I probably won't.
That's okay, far away.
I guess for me, it really is, understanding the community. And in order for us to have authentic engagement, we need to have authentic co-design and parent engagement and student voice and community-based voice. I loved listening before around what Skye was talking about around, we need our students to understand that they're learners and celebrate diversity and making sure we have individual education plans. We've got all of those things, but it really, for me, is making sure that we create a space that the students own and feel like they have a sense of belonging and connection to. So for me, engagement starts with students understanding that this is a safe place to learn, that we celebrate every student individually in our school, and that they feel like they own their potential pathways and their decision making. The second, I guess, and I'll probably blend a few of these together.
It's great.
The second for me is really that relationships, developing strong relationships with our students, developing strong relationships with our community and our families. There's a gentleman out in Cherbourg. His name is Uncle Eric, and Uncle Eric Law. He talks about the idea of a trifecta for success. And a trifecta for success is students who are engaged in learning, who feel like they're empowered to do their best, not the perceived best of a teacher, or it's their best. We need to have parents who feel like they can advocate and speak and be part of the learning journey in our school for their children. And the last one is having engaged teachers who want to do the best. And so we talk about the trifecta for success. So I feel like the second part of that is really trying to develop really strong relationships. And research talks about the fact that we can nearly get 2 years worth of growth just by those connections that a teacher or a parent or a principal can have with students coming into their school so that they feel that it is their school. The third thing is probably going to blend into a whole lot, but it's really quality teaching. I feel like for a student to engage, the curriculum needs to meet their needs. It needs to engage the students. It needs to be supported by quality resources. It needs to be predictable. So we spend a lot of time around low variance routines and really clear structures so students are understanding what is next. And we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how we can, limit cognitive load. So that's limiting disruptions for our students. So their core business of learning and growing and developing and progressing continues to be their core business. So I guess for me, we talk about, think about the idea of what we want to challenge our students to meet their learning edge, and what that is for each student. That is their learning edge and their learning goals. I really found it interesting around the IEP, or individual learning plans or individual education plans. It was a real aha moment where I probably need more parent agency and more student agency. So I might even reach out to Skye and learn a little bit more about that. But I think that there's also the other sense of belonging for our school. A large portion of the research is talking about if we create a strong sense of belonging through connection to country or engagement in local language or art, or like we can do some really basic things there that allow students to really feel connected to the school. So that was way more than three, but
no, I mean, they all kind of feel like they're part of your trifecta, to be honest. So
yeah.
I love that. And again, I think Ashley and Ainsley are probably going to dig a bit into the relationship piece as well,
Yeah.
having spoken to most of them. I really love that what you're actually talking about is also everyone having a part of the pie. We're not all eating separate. We're all at the table together and we're all trying to work this out together. And I love how you framed that. What do you think for parents who are listening? Then you've seen some comments in here. Cressida, I hope I pronounced your right name, has mentioned, isolation and separation for children. We're talking about standards a week. People are saying my child got suspended, and then none of the interventions were put in, and then they were expelled. I mean, these are very common stories we're hearing. 60% of the suspensions we're hearing in the disability space. What would be your advice to parents listening who don't have a principal like you, that are struggling to get their principal engaged with inclusion, but instead of maybe leaning on suspension first policies instead of suspension last policies? What would you recommend to them? How can we get their attention and how can we make some change?
Oh, when I heard that question, I thought, oh, I don't know whether I want to answer this. It's a really challenging question, and I
Sorry.
guess before I
Yes.
started, I didn't actually explain who I am. So, Boyd McLean. My kids sometimes call me shiny headed, which means I am very limited in the hair on top of my head. I put that down to the fact that I have three daughters who are teenagers, so you may hear them shortly. I am middle-aged, I guess. I'm probably, getting close to 50. Well, next year I am. Olive skin, brown hair. I currently am dressed in a white shirt and a tie. I'm colourblind, so my daughters set me up each day with what colour tie I wear. So I think it's pink today. I asked them that, and they said it's pink. So I'll run with that. But yeah, look, that's who I am. So back to the question. I'm clearly trying to divert from this
It's all
one.
right. It's all right.
Um,
Take your time.
I guess the challenge is I probably reflected on my journey. I wasn't always like this.
Mhm.
Um, I was, when I first got into principalship, I felt like I had to have the answers.
Yep.
And I felt that it was probably a sense of weakness to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I need your help. I need you
Mhm.
to partner with me. I need you to support me. I need us to do this together.
Yep.
And so I probably think for me it was patience of my parents around me who helped me learn along the way. And I think for myself, I can't speak for other principals, but for myself, if I'm honest, I didn't do this well at the start of my principalship. I felt
Mhm.
like I was probably answering questions or making decisions that I probably didn't have the skill set to do. For
Mhm.
me now, this sounds really bad, but I tend not to make decisions without consultation of my elders group or of my parents or even of a student. So that I think that I've grown in my leadership and I've still got so much further to go. So how's
Mm.
that for a political response
I,
without getting too far
I
into
mean, it's
that?
always really hard because professionally we want to respect our colleagues, but
Of
we do
course,
what we really also want to do is that's a great reframe. And I probably could have said, maybe next time I'll ask you on a forum, when was the times that you wished you'd done something different and what would you have done different? So
every day.
this, yeah. And I mean, I think that's the same in parenting. I think it's the same in advocacy. I think it's the same in all of our professional environments. But what I really love is the invitation to keep being in relationship. And what becomes exhausting as parents is when that relationship feels like it's very one-sided. But we're going to come to some parents in a minute. My last quick question for you, because I am running late. What should we be advocating for in each of our schools to ensure inclusion? I mean, you've got a very intersectional environment with 100% First Nations, large portion of students with disability. I'm assuming there's also many other arrays of different lived experiences in your community. How do you kind of frame disability inclusion in a First Nations community? Or what do you do to kind of address the disability component? Or is it really just it's about everyone and it's all in?
Oh, look, for me, now I'm going to apologize because not only do I have three teenage daughters, I also have two very furry family members as well. And so you can hear them, which is really unprofessional. So I do apologize. I am at home. Okay, so for me, I honestly believe that the biggest thing that we need to celebrate is diversity.
Yep.
Um, and I think we need to recognize that diversity is not something that is difficult in a school. Diversity is a celebration. Some of my most, for want of a better term, some of my students with very high needs are my greatest gift. And what I mean by that is they have the ability to teach students in my school way better than I ever can around things like empathy and patience
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
tolerance and resilience. It's an absolute gift. And I think if we celebrate diversity, not walk away from it or try and have a cookie cutter approach for everyone, I think
Mm.
that that is something that I feel is the strength of schools that are truly inclusive.
Oh, that's actually a beautiful way to finish. Thank you so much for that answer, Boyd. And I don't feel like that was political at all. I feel like that was just truly from your heart. I got a little side message from a colleague saying, I just really want to acknowledge Boyd for your vulnerability and journey to explain to us about making an inclusive school environment.
Yeah,
It's really great to hear. Thank you so
thank you.
much.
Cheers.
So now we move on to Kristie de Brenni, who's joining us as the principal from Pathway State College. Now, Kristie, we're going to dive straight into it because I kind of asked you some of the same questions, but you run a school which has 9 campuses across Queensland. Do you want to give us the quick elevator pitch on what is the Pathways State College for Queensland?
Hi, my name is Kristie. I'm a middle-aged pale woman as well with blonde hair. It's tied up behind my head, and I have a paisley and blue shirt on today. Queensland Pathways State College is a school that offers a senior transitions program, so not grades 10, 11 and 12, for those young people at risk of prematurely exiting our state schooling system prior to finishing year 12. We offer small campuses in Townsville, Toowoomba, Mount Isa, Mount Gravatt, Coorparoo, Moreton Bay, Bracken Ridge, Goodna and Bundamba. We offer as a 12-month senior transitions program that allows young people who are only complex young people who are vulnerable to come into our system and support them with literacy, numeracy, workplace skills and well-being, and support them on a transition pathway to hopefully further learning or employment. They must be a minimum of 15 years of age and be in year 10. And we are strong advocates in trauma-informed practices and high expectations for our young people, because just because you come from backgrounds that are complex and challenging doesn't mean that you can't achieve, and we believe in every young person that walks in our door can achieve.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kristie. And that was amazing, you rattling off the list, because I was triple checking it here. So you nailed all your 9. I expected you to. So we had a bit of conversation before where I said I asked you all the same questions. What should we be advocating for in our schools to ensure greater inclusion? And that's right across the board, regardless of the schools we're in. What would be some of your kind of key messages for parents and for educators in this space?
Particularly in schools, I think we need to have a relationship with our students in the classroom of curiosity. So when a young person is behaving in a certain way, we need to be asking ourselves, why is that? We as educators need to be curious, as parents need to be curious, and come into the situation in a supportive, trauma-informed way. A young person doesn't want to, have a meltdown in a classroom in front of all their peers. So why did it happen? How did it happen? And how can we make sure the environment is safe and for them to be able to walk back into sooner rather than later? I think with schools, we need to reframe the term behaviour management. We are not in behaviour management, it's behaviour development. So how can we develop our young people so that they can be strong citizens within our communities? And then there's a whole heap of processes that I can get into around personalised learning records that are written with student voice and parent voice, that talk about what are the adjustments that work for young people, how do they want people to respond, so that we are as staff as well learning co-regulation strategies and helping our students with co-regulation strategies, and giving young people the opportunity to be successful in a classroom that is predictable, that is restorative based, that is strength based for student success.
They're really great ideas. I liked how some of the things matched up with Boyd's in terms of the IEPs. We hear a lot about students or parents can't even get access to an IEP, let alone be part of it. So I think what's great about what you're both saying is that your principals, these are available to parents and educators and students to be able to access information about themselves, and parents shouldn't be afraid to ask politely and then ask more assertively, and then reach out for an advocate or take a friend or a family member or someone else that can support you in that process as well. The interesting thing that happens at the Pathways College, and Skye, correct me, is that because you have a sort of a transition from any array of great or potentially disastrous schooling experiences, it also could be life moments. I'm assuming lots of things happening for young adults into your school, and then you're having to kind of do a lot of collaboration with those students to feel safe enough to even have their brains start to function again in a way that allows you to learn, then there's either a transition out of your school into another school, or a learning or a work or a life after school. Can you just talk us a bit through about how you and your staff manage transitions? And the reason I say this is so important is because one of the large things we hear about from families and students is transitions, even from day to day, from room to room, from school to school, classroom, but also actually those big life milestones, as well as in and out of different systems: homeschool, youth justice, state school, cath ed, back to homeschool, et cetera, et cetera. What advice would you have for us about how you guys manage transitions?
For every young person that enrolls in our college, we have a referral form, and what we're trying to do is gather as much honest information about a young person so that we can make sure that we know how to support them in the first interview, and then we bring them in for that interview in an environment where they feel comfortable, which is really hard when we've never met them before. So what we'll often do is go for a walkthrough first, the campus. This is what it looks like, feels like. And hopefully that will then encourage some casual conversation with the walkthrough. We will then bring them back a second time. And then in that second interview that we have with them, we will talk about their previous school enrolment, what they liked, what they didn't like, what kind of teacher that works for them, what strategies work for them. If they're needing us to respond in a certain way because of a particular behaviour, what makes them nervous, what's their personal life like, what's home like. We try and get as much information about a young person, and the more honest they are with us, the more adjustments that we can make in the classroom setting. And I know parents are often scared to share some of that information, but certainly in our setting, the more information that we have, it really does make it easy to make adjustments for young people. And it also brings in that first stage of student voice. Once we get them into the classroom, we then try and find out who they are. Every young person gets what we call a learning pathways mentor. So that's their champion that is with them for their journey. They set 3 goals. They set a learning goal, a pathways goal, and a well-being goal. The learning goal is what is it they want to achieve while they're with us. The pathways goal is about where they want to go to post enrolment at QPSC, and the wellbeing goal is written in consultation with the guidance officer, and they do some wellbeing assessments so we can understand what are they having strengths and difficulties with, and then we can make adjustments in the classroom to really address those wellbeing difficulties. And of course also work on their strengths, but it's good to know where they might see some current deficits so that we can be gentle around that when working with them in the classroom environment. We will then do a personalised learning record for every young person that talks about what is the learning environment, what are the adjustments we need to make in the learning environment for them. Do they need headphones? Do they need certain equipment? Do they need bean bags? Do they need standing tables? Do they need wobbly chairs? We talk about behaviour and adjustments that they need to make around behaviours. Are there constant breaks that need to break up their learning? Do we need to provide illustrations? Do we need to provide snacks within the day to give them brain breaks? So there's lots of adjustments that we do around behaviours. And then, of course, transitions in and out of subjects. So what does that look like? What are the time reminders that we need to put in place? Maintaining regular timetables for young people. And sorry, the lights are going to flash in my room because I should be out of the building, so just ignore that while I'm talking through. That's what happens when you work back late at night.
It might happen here too. Then, I don't know what's going to happen.
Every 5 weeks, we do a check-in with students to make sure their their 3 goals are on track. Every day there's daily check-ins where they tell us how they're feeling. and then we can make adjustments daily. There's constant communication home. We do debriefs at the end of the day to make notes on every young person. And can I say, I work in a really privileged environment where we have the time and our staff have the time to be able to make these adjustments. So yes, it's great, but sometimes time isn't available in every school, but we certainly are privileged to have it where we are. And then when we're talking about transitions out, it's not end of the program, you're gone next week. We take about 6 to 8 weeks to transition a young person from finishing the program, keeping in mind they always knew they were with us for 12 months, so they know it's getting close. And when it gets about 6 to 8 weeks, we will bring in the SLES providers or DES providers to introduce them to people, make sure that there's connections and the families are supported. Sometimes we'll bring in some departmental experts as well to help in that respect for young people with a disability. And that also helps the transition. And then it's a check-in once they exit our program, 1 week, 1 month, 3 month post-transition out of QPSC to make sure that soft landing has occurred for them. I should also point out when we identify early on in engagement in the room, we will make referrals to speech language therapists, OTs, physio in our setting so that we can make further adjustments in the classroom as soon as we identify the needs of the young people.
Guy, that was like the most amazing powerhouse of bullet points of things. Like, we're going to have to go back and type all that. We'll probably get the live captioner to we'll get that information, because I feel like between
I'm sorry, there's
no,
so
it was
much
so
we do.
good. I mean, I think that's the thing, right? Like, we've got to be sharing strategies and ideas with each other. And some of them are about saying, this is what we want the environment to look like. This is how we want to be supported. Some of it's about collaboration. Some of it's about like where there's alignment around our values. So it's really great to have you and Boyd share such different examples of how both your schools are meeting the needs of your students, but also actually how they were completely underlined by relationships. And that's really what we heard. I just need to let you all know that we did extend the time to 7:15 because we knew this was going to happen. So we are not finishing at 7 o'clock, and that got emailed out today. But if anybody needs to leave, that fine. But I really think you're going to want to stick around for this next conversation. Ainsley is going to join us next. Ainsley, thank you so much for being with us today and for your son, Will. To launch straight into it, as a parent, and also you work in the inclusion space with Community Resource Unit, but we've got a lot of parents and you've seen a lot come through in the chats already. What are the 3 things that you would encourage parents to consider in terms of your best advice for having their child feel included and have a great learning environment to work in their school? What are your hot tips for us to take away?
Thank you very much. Yes, Lenine, I've found my journey to Crew because of my kids. I've got my son, Will, who was here before. He's going to year 12 next year. He's minimally speaking and autistic, and he's really beautifully included at his local state high school. We had a really rough journey, though, getting to that point in high school, and connecting with Crew and the Queensland Collective for Inclusive Education. I can see a comment there is really key to that turnaround. So there's some hot tips right there. And I also have a daughter who's finished school, dyslexic and ADHD. So yeah, we navigated tough times for her. My background is as a teacher, so I wear 2 hats. I was a classroom teacher for 20 years before my kids led me in this direction where I now support families. So my hot 3 tips is are really with my parent hat on, because I'm navigating this all the time, supporting parents and also myself working through things with my son's school, because yeah, being somebody who is minimally speaking, there are great challenges for him. So sometimes those behaviours can become quite intense. And unfortunately, he's one of the very rare kids who, with his disability, who are included well, and often they're pushed out because of behaviour reasons. So yeah, we've had to work really carefully, and thankfully I've had a really good school team that's come aboard. But The tips that are really helpful, I won't mess around anymore. I'm just going to hold this up, but I'm happy to share this with Lenine in the template we share at Crew. So a really key one, and I'm just going to scan through it on my camera, is what we call, and it's all going to be back the front, a one-page profile document. So on that, we have got down all the key information about Will that we want every teacher and support person to know. So things about what works for him with his learning and supporting him with his sensory and movement differences, things that just not to do. We've got a list of things to stop, don't go there. Things like don't rush me, unexpected change, negative talk, those sorts of things. We also include his strengths and his interests and what he enjoys so that he can build that connection, which is really important with school staff as well, and they can connect him with his peers. So that's a really key document. Often as parents, we can come in with a whole heap of reports that can send people into the depths and not really get them to the key information quickly. And it's a really lovely way with relief teachers too, to have that key information. So that's something really cool. The next thing that I have found just in recent...
Do you take copies and like leave that with the teacher? Do you put them at the office? So if there's a supply teacher that comes one day, like how do you give that out at the school? Like just...
Yeah. So yeah, very much when we're sort of doing those introductions to teachers, either at the end of the year or the beginning of the next year, I make sure that of course, the inclusion team at school are all across it, but also getting them out because we really want that connection with his class teachers because we want them to make sure they feel responsible for Will and are teaching Will and have that connection with us. Yeah, and just those little reminders, I bring it along to meetings. Will now does a little session at the beginning of the school year with the school team where he actually takes them through the content and does a little mini presentation for the staff. So he's very much now owning that and presenting it in that way.
Did you write to the principal and say, Will would like to do this? Is that how you got that to happen?
Yeah, I did that with, it was more the head of inclusion at his school that we had that conversation that, you know, we really want Will now to start driving this. And wish I had done that in primary school with him, like start early as you can, bringing them in. And that way they hold their shoulders back and are able to better self-advocate, all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
So the I'm just aware of your time, so I'm trying to move quickly.
No, it's okay. Keep going.
This is a fairly new thing, and Lenine asked me to share things that are quite different that people may not have heard before. So something that's been really helpful in the last couple of years for Will is us shifting away from emotion-based language when we're talking around behaviour. So things like happy, sad, green zone, blue zone, whatever, just weren't hitting the mark for Will. And it's research is showing that people with autism, and actually it's hard for all of us, they're really complex concepts. So we now talk around energy, where his energy's at. We'll talk around whether he is feeling amped up or whether he's feeling low, a bit sleepy, or whether he's maxed out. And none of those energy levels are wrong. It's just talking about whether they're the right fit for what he wants to do, and then him learning the things that will help him regulate his energy up or down. So that's been a real game changer. If you want to learn more about that autism level up, has heaps of free resources. So if that you think could be helpful for your young person, may not work for everyone, but it is good new stuff that we're finding really helpful. The last tip I had was that not all behaviour is about unmet need. A lot of it is, but it can also be around sensory and movement differences. So for Will, he has dyspraxia, so there's a lot of movement differences. That's a disconnect between his body and his brain. So sometimes he physically can't do the thing. And I've seen some comments there around PDA too, which is different, but this might be helpful for those people working with PDA kids too. Sort of stepping back and thinking around what could be the issue here. So at the moment, we're going through some movement differences. So things that Will used to be able to do, he just can't do at the moment. So people might think he's being stubborn or non-compliant, but he's really just physically having issues. So we look compassionately at that and how we can support him through it. And it's about shifting the lens a little bit, taking a step back and talking more and exploring it. So Crew has lots of information on that, so they're a good place to go to. So hopefully I didn't race through that too quick, but those have
No,
been
that
my
was
hot
amazing.
3 tips at the moment, and some different stuff for you that might be helpful.
I love that. Thank you for sharing those resources. And we put in the crew template. That's the one-page profile, but people can access. We've put a huge amount of links to the crew fact sheets on the Right to Learn page. Once you kind of hit crew, you just hit resources, and then you're just in a whole world of goodness. I also just want to let you know that in the chats, we also had Natalie from QCIE, which is the Queensland Collective of Inclusive Education. It says it's from Terry, but it's Natalie. So I think she's logged on to someone else's computer. There are more than 2,000 families connected in her community, and every one of them has experienced avoidable negative situations in the education system. They meet with the Department of Ed regularly and seek feedback on real situations. The current changes, and this is what Natalie's written, the current changes at Department of Education policies are removing a focus on children's rights and more on the teacher wellbeing piece. So they have a Facebook group and also a website, and we've also shared that on the Right to Learn website, because any families are welcome to join that. So for just the people who are commenting and part of this. Ainsley, thank you so much. What a resource, and how amazing your son's about to head into year 12. That must feel like many long days and very quick years. I just want to check, Ashley, our parent from Far North Queensland, have we managed to get you online yet, Ashley, or do I need to ring you on my mobile?
I hope I've come out of the dark ages. Can you
You're
hear me?
out, Ashley. You're here. You've made it. There you are. We can see you as well. Lovely to meet you.
3 computers later.
It's all right,
and,
Ashley. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So one of the questions
It's
when we were
welcome to North Queensland.
Thank you, Ashley. One of the things we were talking about the other day was your son's journey through the Catholic system and through primary school, quite rough years, high school much better. You've got a son in grade 8. But we discussed 3 of your kind of best pieces of advice or guidance that have come from your journey. Could you please share them with us as well?
Yeah, so just a bit of background. I'm a mum. I work in intensive care, so nothing to do with education, but in our primary school, Taj in 1 year, my son's name's Taj, he was suspended 47 times in 1 year. And yeah, we tried to work through that and figure that out. Unfortunately, we found there was something that was happening at the school that wasn't quite kosher. So trying to work through that and with the school didn't quite go as I planned. And we ended up taking it through the human rights. And from that, we had an amazing response. So the Catholic education system within our district up here now employs permanent psychologists, which kind of uses a trigger response model, which is what we were looking for. So when the behaviours kind of escalate, it then triggers the response from these psychologists within the resource department to come out and not just look at the behaviour, but like look at the root causes of where it actually came from. So it was, I kind of explain it like scaffolding around a house. So, you know, you can't build a house without scaffolding first. And so we need to put that scaffolding in before you can take away those suspensions and all of that. Suspending him wasn't working, but we definitely needed that support system and that help. So we noticed there was like a huge difference in between home and school, and we thought, well, what's missing? And I actually found really interesting Principal Boyd McLean, because he spoke about connections, and all through what I have written is all about connections. We found that in order for him to learn, connecting with someone and connecting at a level was really important. And I did, I was listening to other speakers speak about like your PLPs, we call them PLPs, personalised learning plans. And I found that often these were like tick and flick documents and rarely actually read by teachers. So for example, halfway through a year, one of his teachers turned around and went, oh, he has cerebral palsy. And I'm like, yeah, he does. So it was kind of then that I realised, well, where's where's the communication problem? Where's the breakdown? What's happening? I need to step up as a mum and kind of step in because there's clearly a breakdown. So I always say know the child, not just the paperwork. And a bit similar to Ainsley, we started doing presentations. So I requested 10 minutes of everybody's time who had a significant role in my son's life or learning journey. And that's where we were able to put in place, me being me, I do my little PowerPoint presentations because that's what I love to do. But it's more about really, really breaking down what it is he needs. We found that how he connects and how easy it is to fracture a relationship with him. So, for example, something like I found him once on his iPad. And so in the past, I'd be like, Tash, why are you on your iPad? I'm not on my iPad. Yes, you are. Why are you lying to me? And it was about reframing that and reframing it in a different light, because as soon as you start accusing him, that's when he starts to escalate and all of that. So it's like, okay, well, what are you doing? So it's really about that reframing that language, because he was like, I was looking at the time. So in his head, he wasn't on the iPad. It was just looking at the time. But then if you accused him of that, that's where that relationship breakdown started to happen in between himself and the teachers. And so when I was able to actually connect with these teachers within 10 minutes, I humanized him as a person. I explained him as a person, and that's where the connection started, because once those teachers could kind of figure out, oh, this is a little bit different for him, that's when they started to really take interest, really want to learn. And when I told his story and his journey of where he came from and what he does, just in order for him to walk, he has to do physio 3 times a week. So before he even starts school, there's an hour of physio. And that's, something that teachers weren't taking on board either. And I think when I was able to attach a story to him, it gave a lot more compassion towards how he was acting on a certain day, or if he was hurting on a certain day. So it definitely allowed those differences. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is when people come to me with concerns, I really kind of break it down. So I'll have, in the past, I'd have teachers come to me and they'd be like, Taj is refusing to listen. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can't work with that. It's too ambiguous. I break it down for me. What does that mean? Be specific, reframe it. So then I'd get them to break it down and be specific. So it would be like, okay, Taj didn't listen when I asked him to finish questions 1 to 4. I'm like, great, we can work with this, but instead of talk about his behavior, let's talk about it being skill focused. So what is the skill that he's struggling with? So it's changing that language and reframing it. So Taj is having difficulty answering questions 1 to 4, which then took it away from it being personalized and like it was Taj not listening to, okay, Taj, what are you struggling with? And then the other thing that I really think is important, and I took this from Boyd as Mr. McLean as well, was the collaboration. I really think that if you don't collaborate, it's great to have talks with parents and talks with everyone else, but if you're not including that child in those talks, it's not going to work. You really need to have their opinion, because being constantly told what you think is good for them and what you think is right, it's not giving them autonomy. It's not giving them ownership. It's not giving them the ability to express what suits them best. And 9 times out of 10, I have teachers come to me and say, oh, what do you think? I go, I don't know, ask Taj. It's him who's affected. It's not me. I just advocate for him. So we really start to do things like, I can see that you're struggling, Taj. Hey, what's up? And then it opens that communication for him. It opens the communication with other teachers. It really connection is key. Like it's a big thing, and I think if you're able to connect with something, connect, it definitely opens the floodgates. We, in our school currently, what we're doing different is like check-in and check-out systems. So it's like we check in with him before he goes out to play because he really struggles with friendships, and then we check in with him before he comes back into the classroom, because we know that when someone's already heightened and they're in this flight or fight zone, it's really hard for them to maintain any kind of information. Their prefrontal cortex is already heightened, so no information is going to go in. So by kind of having that check-in after, it's connecting with him, it's making him feel like he's heard, and it's giving him that space to really kind of come back down and back into that learning experience. So like from a parenting point of view, I just say advocate, and I think
you,
communication, between everyone, between schools, and just it's hard because you're always constantly fighting the best fight that you can, and sometimes it's exhausting. But yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Ashley. There was some really great examples in there in terms of different modes of communicating with your young person that were a little bit like Ainsley's way of working with your son, Will, and the school about using different types of language to describe energy. The reason it was so great to have two parents on here is there is so much more you could be telling us about your kids than the 10 minutes of allocated time that you had today. But what we would really love to do next year is actually have some deeper dives into kind of the parenting journey, about things that have worked, things that haven't worked, hot tips, and be able to kind of link that in with the whole series of questions that we've been given. So I just wanted to, while we come to the wrap up stage, knowing that we're at 7:11, hilarious, my daughter would make some joke about now, but what she wants on the way home, no doubt. But what I would love is if anybody's got any questions that you want to ask principals, that you want to ask Skye or Matilda working for advocacy organisations, or that you want to ask Ainsley or Ashley, now's the chance. Please just chuck them all into that chat. And what we will do is we'll send them around and see if we can get some answers from people, and we'll email you all back out with a bit of a Q&A that was left over from today. We know there was stuff and amazing examples shared in here. There was also a question about students with PDA and how schools are managing that. It's a really big, complex arrangement for families, kids, and sorry, just checking that message, and sorry, the child and the teachers and the families. But there are also another array of examples in there where certain issues were raised. I noticed Matilda responded to some, Sarah responded to some. But if you have any other questions, whether they seem small or large, we're just going to leave this chat open for a minute. While we wrap that up, any of our speakers who've gone before, any things that are hearing Ainsley or Ashley speak that anyone wants to dive in with, any last comments? Little pearls of wisdom, things that have, that you thought, I really want to bring that up right now. Now's our moment. Anyone? Yes, go Skye. Thank you.
Skye speaking. Thanks, Lenine. Thank you, Ashley and Ainsley, for sharing your own family's experiences with education. And I loved how the comments that have been made really focused on the word connection. And I was thinking about the topic of this forum tonight, which is suspension. And when I think of suspension, it's like something is untethered, floating in air, neither here nor there. And what's the opposite of that? Something being connected. And so I just feel like it was such a beautiful way to think about how we can overcome and work together to end suspensions. And the way to do that is through that deeper connection. So, yeah.
I mean, I couldn't have even come up with that, Skye, had I thought about it this morning. That was sensational. Also, I think just to add to that, we did hear from our principals that connection was just as important from the principal and teacher perspective. So maybe we need to call our next forum connection, not suspension, rather than solutions, because solutions also does have that finite end of the day story, when the other thing, what I really heard is it's a process. And when I spoke with both Ainsley and Ashley, you know, I was getting tears in my eyes because as a parent in that same journey, as many of us are on this call, the fatigue and the exhaustion. So I also really just want to encourage educators, connect in with your professional networks and reach out to amazing leaders, whether they're in your school or not. For community-based organisation employees, please link in with our disability advocacy organisations, state and national, as well as our specialist education supports in CREW and QCIE. And for all of our families, there are a number of peer groups that are connected through. Ainsley was telling me the other day, there's a statewide network of parents that will meet someone for a cup of tea, give you some advice. We know there's 2,000 families linked in with QCIE. No one should feel alone in this process. We have to connect ourselves as a sector as well. Okay, let's wrap up. This has been an amazing conversation. We're going to email you all out after today. You've got the notes there. We've got some more resources. Head to QAI. You've got our email, qai@qai.org.au. You've also got the CREW email and the QCIE Facebook links as well. Could we please give a massive round of applause to Skye, Kristie, Boyd, Ainsley, Ashley. Also, I feel like Will and Taj were a strong part of this, as well as the students at the Pathways and the Cherbourg schools. So thank you so much. That's just me clapping by myself in the office. As I said, my name's Lanine Burke and I'm going to be working on this campaign with the QAI team for some time. So I'll stick around for 5 minutes just after this if the speakers could stay online as well. We also need a huge big thank you to our two amazing Auslan interpreters, Michelle and Susan, and also to the brilliant Donna for the live captioning. Thank you everyone for your time. Also Shannon, Sarah, Caitlin, Dave, the YPP team and everyone at QAI, thanks for your support. And hope you have a great festive holiday season and we'll be in touch for our events next year. Thanks everyone. Bye.